Hello everybody, welcome to the Film Brits podcast. I'm your host Trilbee, the Ron Swanson of film criticism, and I say that because in the past few days and weeks, watching Parks and Recreation, marathoning it on Amazon Prime, has been my life. It has been just a terrific experience watching a series that I hardly knew anything about, but I liked the people in it. Like, I like Chris Pratt, Aubrey Plaza, and everybody involved, Amy Poehler and everyone. And then all of a sudden I discovered that they're in a TV show together, and it's one of the most fun things I've ever watched. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in to Film Brits Live. It's the first time I've tried to do a live podcast. You can probably tell it's the first time I've tried to do it. So let's take a look at what the chat is saying. Stucky Compt says, nice neck beard. Thank you very much. I grew it myself, man. Hello, Cesar Vasquez Garcia. Hello, Tom Burley Smith. Hello, Sir Dean Jones of Film Brits. Trilbee, please acknowledge me so I can be fulfilled, says Tom Anderson. I'm acknowledging you. So what we're going to do today on this live edition of the podcast is just talk about the state of the channel and just talk about general life stuff and transitions. But first, I've got something very cool to show you. A Christmas present from my dad. One moment, just going to get it from the back. I don't know if you can see that because I'm 30 seconds behind on the live stream, but this is something that my dad got me for Christmas, and I don't really have anywhere to put it. So you have all of this to enjoy. I can finally now see on the live stream. For those of you who are not watching it live, it's basically a massive canvas with that looks like a Doctor Who comic book cover with Davros and the Daleks, the Silence and the Silurians. I think that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life, and now I've got to try and somehow put that on the wall somewhere. But yeah, I just thought I'd randomly show that. But yeah, 2016 is over, and it's now time to get into the current time. It's 2017, although if you're listening to this podcast, it's confusing, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Speaking of which, I have watched the Doctor Who Christmas special, watched it about an hour or two ago. The Return of Dr. Mysterio, I really can't comment on it. I thought it was fine. I thought it was a decent, okay piece of television. I can't get worked up about it, I can't get angry about it, I can't get passionate about it. It just existed for 60 seconds. It existed for 60 minutes and then was gone, and it's not going to impact my life in any way apart from when I inevitably revisit it, if I'm going to be doing a review of it if I get that far. So yeah, basically, I'm just going to address some stuff in the chat. What is today's topic, asks Cesar Vasquez Garcia. Basically, just going to be taking live questions from you lot, and also just engaging with the people watching and listening, as well as talking about the state of the channel. And yeah, it's mainly just a Q&A, if anything, and also just a general update thing. But I've also got some very awesome news that is not quite as important or as quite as impressive as that canvas in the back. But as many of you know, I've been with my girlfriend for almost 6 years, and during New Year, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. So I'm now engaged. That's some big New Year's news. Thought I'd let you know live on a podcast. Probably the most romantic way to do it. Now, moving swiftly on from that weird bombshell, let's go back to some more questions. What did I think of Class, asks Communist in Space. I've not watched a single episode of Class. I don't feel quite compelled enough to seek it out and watch it a marathon. It's also just the weird amount of time, because at the moment, what I'm doing is that I'm going to try and watch as many films as possible from 2016 so I can do my year's end list, because over the past few months I've not really had time to go out to the cinema because I've been working so much. I've been working on TV projects, on film projects. I also did a bit of retail over Christmas because the TV work kind of winds down unless you're working on a live studio show or a Christmas special or anything like that. It just means I've not had a lot of time to watch films, so I'm going to try and catch up on as many releases as possible, so it's actually fair and more definitive when I do my year's end 2016 list, whether it's the best films or the worst films, most disappointing, things like that. So that is essentially what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. If you keep looking at my website, www.trilbee.com, you'll be able to read all of my reviews. I recently posted my reviews of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, Central Intelligence, and just a couple of hours ago I posted my review of Swiss Army Man. So I'm going to be catching up on all my other reviews, like Doctor Strange, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, as well as catching up on some probably some bad films that I need to watch, like Gods of Egypt. I did not see. I'm going to make sure I see Gods of Egypt. The Fifth Wave, I'm going to make sure that I see, as well as some other films that might actually surprise me. Films like Trolls, when that comes out on DVD. I think there might be some screenings still about in my area. Films like Storks, and just a few others that I just need to watch more films from last year in order to do a definitive list. So those lists are coming, the year's end lists. I think I'm definitely going to do my most anticipated in the next couple of weeks. Because those are, I don't really need to have educated opinions on those films, because they're ones I'm looking forward to. I don't really need to have watched them or caught up with them. They're just films that I'm personally looking forward to. It's going to be the most subjective list imaginable. Try and make sure that my voice doesn't break. Cup of tea. So what I'm going to be doing next couple of weeks is going to be catching up on some films that I've missed. I'm going to be posting all the written reviews on my website. So let's check out the chat. They didn't justify Nardole at all. That's what I'll go back to Doctor Who the Christmas Special, the Return of Doctor Mysterio. It kind of felt like the bare minimum. It with Stephen Moffat, Mark Gatiss, or whoever it was who was involved creatively at the BBC and at Doctor Who just thought, okay, what's in right now? What's in right now? We've got to do something right now to make a really inventive Christmas special. We said, let's do superheroes of the Marvel and DC. They're really big. Let's do a superhero thing. That's great. And then it turns out that conversation was in 2012, and they only just got around to making that special. And then when they did, they poked fun at the Clark Kent and Superman appearance. Like it's obvious when you read the comics that they're the same person, and when you have the whole secret identity aspect and basically just ripping off of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man in terms of just the visuals and the iconography, it just felt like it wasn't commenting or critiquing or subverting superhero tropes. It was just doing them. It was just doing a superhero story. And I think Nardole is also just another bare minimum approach. Okay, who's somebody who could do fun interviews or who could entertain the children during the special? And that's Matt Lucas. Let's just get him along. He serves zero narrative purpose. He's just there to make a toilet joke and have some, just essentially just be a wall for the Doctor to talk to and give exposition to. I think the best part about the episode was actually the reveal of the villain's plot, when it turns out, okay, we're gonna destroy New York, but our building is gonna survive, and what's gonna happen is that we're either going to we're gonna advertise these other buildings in the capital cities where all the incredibly famous rich people will go to these buildings, and then we'll do something with their brains. That bit was pretty vague, but actually scaring people into obeying them, like with just a sort of like misleading form of terrorism. Well, not misleading, because they're literally destroying New York City. I thought that was quite a clever plan, and I didn't see it coming, but the rest of it just felt fine. And then at the end, it turns out that the Doctor's just being a bit weird and insensitive because of River Song, but because that happened literally 1 year ago, and nothing has happened between that for the Doctor, at least unless he makes a substantial appearance in class or something, we really don't have anything to gain from seeing that happen. We don't really have any context for that relationship, and it's actually quite lame. So let's go back to the mate, I fucking love Nardole, says British Buffoon. I don't know how serious that is. Okay, now it's getting oh shit, congrats, good for you, yay, congrats, how be you, congrats, lots of congratulations, thank you so much everybody. So yeah, future Mrs. Trilbee, get right in, Will. Okay, so this question's popped up quite a lot of times. Gets engaged now, mate. The Doctor Who campus is more important here. Yeah, exactly. Live, breathe, media. So Kubla98 has been asking, how did you get into the film industry? What basically I started off doing mostly theatre, mostly doing performances and acting and things like that. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I realised actually I'm not that great at it. I'm okay, but there are much more talented people than me doing this, so let's leave that to them and see what I can do. And as I was trying to do that, I started up this channel. I started up the Mr. Tyler's Reviews channel, shortly followed by this channel, and started analysing Doctor Who and film and television and all that stuff, and realised I was actually like really, really, really into film analysis. So I kind of just stumbled upon it, and it is really Doctor Who that I have to thank for getting me into it, even though I don't really think Doctor Who's really done me any favours lately. And what I did was, halfway during a theatre course that I was doing, I had to do a collaborative project with people from with other students from different curriculums. I was part of the theatre group, and we had to do a collaborative process with the media group, with the music group, with all of these different departments, and they had to do a big collaborative project which put together all of these elements. And the media guy just never ever showed up, so I kind of took charge of that and did both the theatre and the media side, and I really, really got into it. So once I graduated from my doing my theatre, I decided to pursue film media, and I did a master's in fiction film production, and really through that I have been just applying for jobs and doing some production work. And it's actually done, 2016 it's one of those things where 2016 has been a really, really terrible year in terms of just the general world, but for many individuals it has been an incredibly good year. And I think 2016, at least for me, in terms of what I've been doing, my future aspirations, I think it has been a very good year. I've worked with people who I consider massive influences and inspirations. I worked with Peter Kay for 3 months. I worked on Car Share Series 2, and also the Christmas stuff, which was probably the best job I have ever had. It was such a wonderful environment. I've been watching Peter Kay for years and years, and I'll never forget the moment when it's like my second or third day in the office, and it's in pre-production. We've not started filming anything yet, so I'm not expecting anything, so I'm just working at my desk, and then all of a sudden Peter Kay walks in a blue shirt, in like his blue shirt that he often wears on his tours, but it's just one he's just wearing about the office. Comes in, introduces himself to some people, and it was 1:15 in the afternoon, and I was so taken aback that when I shook his hand, I said good morning. I was so I don't think he noticed. Nobody's ever pointed it out to me, but I noticed, I realised, so that was a lot of fun. Worked on that for 3 months. So sad to see the back of it, but that's the thing about media work. You develop these relationships and this family that you do for several months, and then you move on to the next thing. Worked on some Netflix stuff. Basically what you do is that you just apply for entry-level stuff. Like, I know so many people who I've done a whole video on this. I did like a segment on the Movie Mania podcast. If you go on my YouTube channel, How to Break into TV and Film Industry, there's a much more comprehensive version, but this is just a Cliff Notes version. So many people leave film school and say, oh, I graduated with a 2-1 or a first or whatever, and I'm a director, so I'm going to put director on my business card. No, you don't do that. You have to put yourself out there as a runner, or a boom operator, or a grip, or whatever your area of expertise is going to be, or camera assistant, and then you have to work your way up. And basically, you just do that. You apply. One good thing to do is to get into commercials, because not only is it incredibly well paid, because there's sort of like a minimum wage for commercials where you can get paid like £200 to £300 a day working on a commercial. They've got money to burn on commercials. It's actually kind of a racket. But it also means that you can do a couple of days' work here and there, earn enough to support yourself. And it's just a good entry-level position to get into as well. Just look on Facebook boards. Like, I'm living in Manchester, so one group I'm on is Northern Freelance Production Crew Members on Facebook, and it's a free group. You don't have to pay anything, and loads of people just put job postings and job boards on that Facebook page. It's free, and it is based on luck. It is first come, first served for many people. I remember Let It Shine, which is coming to the BBC on Saturday. Their first rounds of auditions were in Manchester, the individual solo auditions for the talent, and they were filming in Manchester, and somebody I knew was actually working as part of was working as a production coordinator. On Facebook, he said that they were looking for people to help out. I missed the deadline by about 30 seconds, but then when they did the group auditions a couple of weeks later, I was right on it, and I got onto that job, and I'll be seeing the fruits of my labour on January 7th or January 8th. I think it's next Saturday when Let It Shine's out on the BBC. I've got some stories to tell about that. I can say that for a fact. Working on a talent show, a genre that I absolutely hate in TV, was very illuminating. Let's just say that many of my concerns for the for talent shows on TV are wholly justified. So I'm way behind on the chat, so I'm going to what do you think about the new companion TARDIS girl? 11 asks. Asbill or Bill? I don't know. I don't really have anything. I think that she will be fine. I think she's got experience in theatre and working with kids, so I think if they do any live events or any live exhibitions or charity events, I think she'll smash it. She'll hit it out of the park. But I really have nothing to go on. I have as much to go on as you do, so I don't really want to draw any definitive conclusions. I know in my video talking about the reveal that they did a couple of months ago, people thought, why do you hate Bill? Like, let's give her a chance. I'm not hating the companion, I just think that the way they revealed as Bill said a lot about how the BBC sees Doctor Who, and it also just plays into very tired stereotypes and tropes about the show that give it a negative stigma. Tom Bowen asks, has doing YouTube reviews ever got in the way of your love life? Not really. No, I don't really even have a funny answer for that. It's just all about balance, really. Angela Castaneda says, watch Collateral Beauty. I'm planning to. I'm very much looking forward to that train wreck of a movie, allegedly. Tom Burley Smith, did you see 9 Lives? No, it's out on DVD. I have no excuse, so I am going to watch it. Hub Pie asks, Trilbee, what are some of your goals for this year? Some of the goals for this year: get more media work and also just do more videos. Like this is one reason I wanted to do this podcast, why I wanted to let people know the state of the channel. Yeah, I've really, honestly, I have dropped the ball in 2016 in terms of my content. For the first 3-4 months, I felt like I was on it. I felt like I was doing really well, watching a lot of films, getting a lot of those reviews out. The audio reviews I did, some of them didn't do well, some of them did really, really well. But it also put me in YouTube's good books in terms of the analytics, because they prefer longer content, more regular, more longer content. So that put me in YouTube's good books in terms of the analytics, and my channel grew slightly from that. However, once myself and my girlfriend moved into our own place together, then things really, my priorities completely shifted by necessity. I had to pay bills, I had to support both of us, we'd have to support each other, and as a result, some of my reviews fell to the wayside. It also doesn't help that for several months on end, I would be working sometimes 6 AM to 11 PM, day in, day out, for weeks on end. That does not give you much time to watch movies, let alone talk about them. Like, you've got to watch them and then talk about them, so of course my channel fell to the wayside. I've got nothing lined up for January. Hopefully that changes soon, but it also means I can use January to catch up on stuff. I've got some editorials written, some about Rogue One, some about Passengers and stuff. I've got some editorials written that I'm hoping to get done over the next couple of weeks. But obviously my priority is finding work to pay the bills, as well as just catching up on some of the 2016 stuff. So my goals for this year is just keep being awesome, but be more awesome on YouTube. That's going to sound so braggadocious. Blimey, what is that name? Potato Bomb Kyle Pointless Brick Film Production says, why don't you like Peep Show? I remember you mentioning it in your review of Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and I was just curious. It just, like, humour is so subjective, it doesn't do anything for me. I don't think Mitchell and Webb are a particularly compelling duo together. I just think both of them are playing from the same shtick as characters. They don't bounce off each other, they just blend into each other. I don't really think Peep Show has a distinctive feel, and its main visual gimmick it doesn't even commit to. Like, just watching it from a production standpoint, Peep Show, the visual gimmick of Peep Show is the fact that it's always filmed from the point of view of the characters. There's no outsider shot, there's no it's all from the eyes. It's basically Doctor Who Sleep No More, but an entire series. But then when you actually watch it expecting that, you'll just see countless continuity mistakes, you'll see constant eye lines and editing mistakes. You'll see, for example, maybe Mitchell is looking that way, away from the person who is over there, and then when it cuts to them, they are looking direct. For me, that's really, really distracting. When your one visual gimmick is something that you don't even really polish, it just annoys me. And I know people are going to get really, really annoyed because Peep Show is considered a really great British comedy. It does nothing for me personally. I'm not going to hate anyone who really, really likes it or call them stupid or any other insult under the sun. It just, for me, doesn't do anything. But hopefully I've explained why. So Annoying Nerd asks, did you watch the newest Sherlock episode? And if so, what did you think? Much like Doctor Who, the latest Sherlock episode was fine. It was okay. I think that it shouldn't really be called Sherlock. It should just be called Mary Episode 1. I think that the strength of Moffat and Gatiss when they're working on Sherlock in terms of writing it is when they are sticking very closely to the books, and also when they only have one plot to follow. And I think in recent years with Series 3 and The Abominable Bride and this episode, when there are so many mysteries to be solved in one episode, I think they just completely lose the plot, and it becomes not only hard to follow, but because you lose all the character stuff, you don't really care for them. I didn't really care about Mary and Watson's relationship, so when what happens in Sherlock happens, I just couldn't care less. Part of me feels a bit vindicated at the ending of Series 3, which I called out as being some phenomenally stupid stuff. The ending of Series 3 makes no sense, no matter how you look at it. And people have just spent years saying how I'm wrong, and then basically the beginning of this recent episode basically just says, yeah, the ending of episode 6 really was stupid, let's ignore it, move on, retcon it, okay. I feel very vindicated from that, at least personally. But yeah, the episode, fine, okay. I guess, I don't think it's me, because I'm able to watch episodes from Series 1 of Doctor Who and Series 1 of Sherlock and absolutely love it. I love Series 1 of Sherlock, I love Series 2 of Sherlock, and I love Series 1 to 6.5 of Doctor Who, but then I just watch recent ones and I don't get that feeling. I don't think I've grown out of it so much as Doctor Who and Sherlock have grown in... No, this metaphor's failed. Okay, so let's go to some more comments. Let's get down. Greetings, Trilbee. Happy New Year. Thank you very much, Danny DeSanta. More comments below. I might just have to skip this stuff. Oh, okay, here's one. British Buffoon says, did you watch the Outnumbered Christmas special? Yes, I did. I really like Outnumbered, and I thought the Christmas special was really good. It was really good. It was a really nice bottle episode piece of comedy. Like, most of Outnumbered is just a series of bottle episodes where they do just take place in one or two locations, and it's mainly improvising. At least from what I've heard, they basically say, these are the beats you've got to hit. The kids will just do whatever they want. Go for it. And I kind of feel I kind of feel a bit sorry for the two adults. I forget their names. One of them, she was in The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe, and the guy is a comedian who I first heard of him from My Hero. But I forget their names. The chat's going to correct me, but because I'm 30 seconds behind on the live stream, I'm not going to see it in time. But they say, but I feel really sorry for them because they have to work around the improvising. They have to carry it and keep the ship moving, but it's so indicative of their talents that it works completely. And they work so well with each other and with the kids. And the Christmas special, it's so weird to see these kids grown up. And because they have been aging. It has kind of been like Harry Potter on the TV, but much more grounded and a lot funnier. So I really liked the Christmas special. I think it was pulling a similar trick to The Inbetweeners, when there's the episode of The Inbetweeners when they got the fashion show, and there's that student in the wheelchair who everybody just loves and adores because he's in a wheelchair, but he's actually a complete arsehole and no one except for Will is willing to call him out on it. And I think something similar happened with this, because the premise of the Outnumbered Christmas special is that they get in a car accident and the woman's in a wheelchair, but it's clear that she's feigning injury. She's going to try and sue them or try and get compensation, and she's just faking her injuries and trying to make it seem worse, but the parents don't want to accuse her of anything because she's in a wheelchair. And I think it's a really clever subversion. Inbetweeners did it in a different way, Outnumbered did it in its own way, both complemented each other. I thought it was really clever. TARDIS Girl 11 asks, have you ever been invited to a con? No, I haven't. I've only been to one convention in my life, and that was a Lincoln Doctor Who one where I met Colin Baker. A lot of fun. So I've not been invited to a con, but to be fair, I've never been on the con scene at all. So I have why would I be invited to a con? I don't know why. I know nothing about conventions. Next question comes from Jake Rocks Noodles. Says, you sound very busy. Do you have any hobbies outside of work other than viewing media, which seems closely related to your work anyway? Apart from it's more socializing with people, friends, family, spending time with my girlfriend, now fiance, and just, yeah, it's either work, searching for work, this my online content, viewing stuff, and basically, yeah, just kind of socializing. There's not a lot of free time when I'm doing nothing. And if I do have a day off where I do nothing, I try to do as little as possible. I try to just sleep, or maybe just read a book, or watch an older film, something I've been meaning to catch up on that's not relevant or current. So I don't really have that many hobbies, but then again, I've got such like a broad amount of stuff I need to do. That wasn't a sentence. Let's go scroll down. Have you watched Clash yet? I've not watched a single episode, I've already said. Angela Castaneda says, are you going to see Sing? I am going to see Sing. And I thought from the trailers it looked like the absolute worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It basically, the fact that I hate talent shows on TV talent shows does not help at all, because I think it's an absolute racket of an industry. It is a cottage industry. It is just a mechanical machine that doesn't care anything about what it puts out or takes in. And actually working on a talent show in the past couple of months has further cemented that, but I have no idea if I'll ever be able to tell those stories, at least for another couple of years, otherwise I may never work in the industry again. I'll never look at some celebrities the same way, I'll tell you that much. And then I just thought, okay, Sing, just basically taking an animated film from Illumination Entertainment, who are the kings of just creating generic entertainment with Minions and The Secret Life of Pets, and then you make Sing a talent show about animals, and when you have the bit in the trailer where it's just animals singing songs that you recognise, and that is the joke, this is a song you recognise, that was the joke of the trailer, I just thought this is going to be the worst thing. This is like my most dreaded film of the year. But then it got pushed back to 2017, so now I can't talk about it in my 2016 list. Oh, you cheeky blighters, you. But for 2017, it will not be ignored. If it is bad, who knows? It could be really good. Some reviews have been really, really positive. So who knows? It could surprise me, but my expectations aren't just low, they're subterranean at the moment. William Mumford asks, shag, marry, kill, H-bomber guy, Nardole, or Hillary Clinton? Okay, let's figure this out. Let's give this question the time and dedication that it truly deserves. Okay, I would marry Hillary Clinton, I would kill Nardole, and shag H-bomber guy, even though I'm not gay and I've got a fiance. That's how the question goes. Yeah, I'd marry Hillary Clinton. She's a career lady, and I think she might do very well. Who knows? What's your favourite film from 2016? Asks Ryan Bulkwill. That would be telling. Yeah, that would be telling. I was actually about to answer that question completely earnestly and legitimately, but then, you wouldn't watch my top 10 films of 2016. So, okay, communist in space! ! Does a talent show have the potential to be good? It absolutely has the potential to be good. There's nothing wrong with the premise. It's just how they approach it and how they annualize it. Because when you, this year in particular, 2016, you get so many incredible music icons who have passed away, who have years of legacies behind them, who have such a vast catalogue of diverse, interesting work, like David Bowie, who, Under Pressure, the collaboration he did with Queen and Freddie Mercury, I think is one of the best songs ever written. I think Under Pressure is an amazing song when you listen to the lyrics. And he's just got such an incredible, vast catalogue of music. Because that has been it. He's been able to build a persona over time. He's been able to build a reputation over time and a unique identity. Whereas this current culture that we're in right now of talent shows, and also just taking the latest stuff from the Disney Channel, and basically the entire selling point of some of those music stars like Miley Cyrus or Selena Gomez or Ariana Grande is they look 12 but they're technically legal, and that's basically their entire selling point from a marketing perspective, especially in how they're shot in their music videos. But when you have these talent shows, you get you get a singer or whoever is unfortunate enough to get first place. They win like a 1-album contract with a producer, and what happens is that once that contract is expired, the producer has no obligation to look over them again or look after them again. They have no obligation to do a second album, and by the time that first album is done, there will be the next series of the talent show, so they'll just cast that person aside and move on to the next poor soul standing in line. There is a music culture of these annual releases means that you get this person who wins, does one album, toss them away, the next person in line. That person who's been tossed away doesn't have the time to establish an identity or do their own thing because they are under the thumb of a contract that they didn't earn the success in a way. They didn't spend years building up to it. They got lucky on a TV series and then they were just eaten by the machine and spat back out again, which is very depressing. And it also just means that in maybe 30-40 years time, you're not going to get like a massive reaction to a musician's death like you did with David Bowie or George Michael. So that's like, there's nothing wrong with the talent show premise. It's just how it's done and how cynical it is and how it is so annualized, which just makes me very, very depressing. And there is a pushback against it. How at the beginning of the year it was Strictly or X Factor, who's gonna win? And it wasn't even a contest. Strictly Come Dancing was getting like 2 or 3 times the ratings of the X Factor, so they had to bring in stuff like Honey G. And everything is so scripted on talent shows. So scripted, so producer driven. Earpieces dominate that medium. Like 9 times out of 10, the judges have no agency on what they say. They have no agency on their opinions. It's all producer driven. They're told what to say through their headsets. I've probably said too much. So let's go back to some questions. I'm also going to take some Patreon questions and just talk in depth about topics. So if you folks just want to maybe slow down with the questions, and then we can actually start discussing topics from the patrons. And then, because I don't want like there to be 20 questions that never get answered or ignored. Maybe from now save the questions until a little bit later. I'll take a couple more quick ones, and then I'll do some Patreon ones, and then we'll get some proper discussions. Ethan Walsh asks, how do you fix the DCEU? Flashpoint, start again, keep some of the cast members, gut the creative team. Suicide Squad and BVS has proved that the system itself is broken, it's not because Zack Snyder. Folding Ideas, Dan Olsen did a really good video recently about the editing of Suicide Squad, and if you watch that video, it will just show that there's just... Tone is not the issue with the DCEU. That's what people are saying. Oh, films are too dark, films are too serious. No, it's just the films are fundamentally broken from a creative standpoint. So it is basically nuke it and start over again. And you've got some incredibly talented actors who could make great... You've got a great Lois Lane, a potential Lois Lane and Amy Adams, Jeremy Irons, and there's also Ben Affleck, and all these great actors and talent on board, but they get wasted with the material. There's no point in them just pursuing these things much longer. And there's even the news recently that Ben Affleck might not even be directing the new Batman film. So who knows like how that's even going to... Tom Braley-Smith says also Margot Robbie. On paper, perfect Harley Quinn, but when you have a creative team that fundamentally misunderstands the love story between her and the Joker, what good is great casting if the guiding eye, if the vision is just not there? Which is the most depressing part of it. Okay, so Brian Mayle also asks, best indie / low budget films you've seen recently. Off the top of my head, I will sing the praises of Sing Street. Sing Street, very low budget, Irish film. It's out on DVD now, you can get it relatively cheap. Really, really good film. It's also been nominated for a load of Golden Globes as well, and I expect it to get a few Academy Award nominations, like for Best Original Song, maybe Best Sound Editing or something, but Sing Street is an incredibly fun film, really heartfelt and enjoyable. The premise of Sing Street is that there's a boy who's taken out of private school during during the poverty that was happening in Ireland a couple of decades ago. He's taken out of his private school and put in public school. And then he falls in love with a girl who is a model who is across the road from the school. He meets up with her, tried to flirt with her, and says, I've got a band. Do you want to be a model for our music video? And she says yes. And then he realizes, shit, I've got to create a band. So that's basically the story. He has to start up a band to be with this girl. And it's just a really nice, simple... this love story's quite simple, but it gets a lot of mileage out of its young cast. There's a lot of just great visual gags. And the music itself is genuinely good. I'm sure that if you were 11, 12, 13 years old, whatever the age of these kids are, probably wouldn't make good songs, but it's portrayed in a way that this is how they are hearing their music. And it's really good. Like Drive It Like You Stole It, Riddle of a Model. There's some really good songs here. And Angel Castadina asks, did you see Begin Again? And I've not seen any of this director's work before Sing Street. And I'm just looking at my webcam now and realising I'm doing the Mark Kermode flappy hands, so I apologise for that. So let's just do a couple more questions. Tom Burley Smith says, don't let your dreams be dreams. Good life advice. Okay, Elliot Reethart says, what's your opinion on people who use AdBlock? I'm sympathetic because there's some websites that you just can't function without using AdBlock, because then whether it's just choking up the bandwidth, like some people are afraid to even go on some websites because the adverts are literally giving their computers viruses. Like, I'm sympathetic to it. I just think that if you're using AdBlock, don't do a complete 100% block out of all adverts, because there's got to be some compromise. I think if there are some websites that you really, really support, or like you like the content of, you whitelist those. Like on my website, Trilbee.com, I don't have many ads on it. The ads that I do use are just generally low-key. They don't earn me a lot of money on that website, but that's because I'd rather have a little bit of ad revenue and have people willing to put up with those small amounts of adverts than people just block it off completely. And I say what do I even say on my website? I think I don't know if it is on the website, but I mentioned it ages ago, that if people are just unable to watch my content because the adverts are so intrusive, let me know and I'll fix it, I'll change it, I'll sort that out, and then we can reach a compromise together. It's about communication, and it's also okay, here we go. There are adverts running on the website. I'd hugely appreciate it if you could whitelist www.trilbee.com from your ad blocking software. I understand people don't like advertising online. However, I will endeavour to keep the adverts as unobtrusive as possible. If I do not uphold this promise, please contact me so I can lessen the adverts. I think if you just entirely block adverts from the internet, then those people who you support and watch, they don't get the content that you want. But if you go on if you like my website, whitelist it on your ad block. If you like, I remember RageSelect.com who do some awesome video game content. They actually make a point to say whitelist us on our ad block on your ad block. I never use ad block. My brother, he does an all or nothing approach of ad block, but I'm sympathetic to it. But I think people who claim to be moral crusaders fighting against adverts with ad block, I think that they're just really, really trying to rationalise the fact that they just don't want to see adverts. I think it's a lot more. It's very, very simple and kind of mundane, but they want to bolster it themselves up, and I think that's a bit annoying, and it kind of dilutes the narrative that the actual discussion that needs to be had about adverts online. British Buffoon says, you have been randomly selected to win an iPhone 7. Click the advert. Okay, so let's take a patron question, and we'll have a proper discussion for a little bit, and you guys can join in as well, and then we'll get to some more questions before doing a general wrap up. Okay, so Edward Sweet, the patron, asks, which films from 2016 have been the biggest surprises and disappointments for you? For me, Deadpool and Ghostbusters were the biggest pleasant surprises, and Suicide Squad was my biggest disappointment. Hope you had a great Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you, Edward. I did have a very good Christmas and a Happy New Year. Everyone, if you want to put in the comments section what were your biggest surprises and biggest disappointments, and I'll pick some of them out and we'll talk about those in a moment. But for me, I wouldn't really say that Ghostbusters was a big surprise for me, because I like Paul Feig's work. His work generally agrees with me. If you don't like his style of filmmaking, his style of comedy, I absolutely get why you wouldn't like Ghostbusters. I actually think that the extended cut of Ghostbusters has lessened the film in my eyes, because I'm probably one of the biggest defenders of that film you'll get. And I gave it 4 stars, no regrets. But I think the extended cut makes it feel very long-winded. There's a couple of plot elements in the extended cut that don't really have a resolution and aren't needed. And his brand of comedy works in small doses. If you add another 20 minutes of that comedy to a film like Ghostbusters, it does kind of make it feel like it really drags. If the extended cut was the version that was released in theatres, I probably would have given it maybe 3 maybe 3 stars out of 5. But the version that we got in theatres, I think, is the best cut. And as for people who are just... when you get really lifeless, soulless, cynical cash grabs like Independence Day Resurgence, and you still put something like Ghostbusters at the bottom of your worst of 2016 list, something tells me the problem, this problem goes beyond the film itself, I think. I think people who are still talking about it and still ragging on about it, even though at worst it's just another reboot, at worst case scenario, for me, I found it a really enjoyable film, and I actually think it's more worthy of the Ghostbusters name than Ghostbusters 2. But that's just me. But in terms of biggest surprises and biggest disappointments, Deadpool, that was kind of a surprise, because we thought it would be good, but we didn't think it would be as good, and its success was surprising as well. If Deadpool had been released in China, it probably would have been a bigger financial success than Batman v Superman, which is absolutely insane. In terms of disappointments, the DC films were massive disappointments, including the remake of The Killing Joke, and H. Bomber Guy, who I mentioned earlier as the guy who I would shag in a version of Marry, Shag, Kill. He did a really great video on why this the new cartoon adaptation just misunderstands the material. Just using one of the desks in one of the opening panels of the comic book as an example. It's a really great analysis. I really recommend you check it out. Just seen some people put some biggest surprises and disappointments. I'm seeing a lot of disappointments for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It was my most anticipated film of 2016. It is not going to be on my top 10 list. So I guess that means I was disappointed. I was maybe expecting a bit more, but I still enjoyed it a lot. I'm looking forward to where that franchise is going. But in terms of the biggest disappointments of the year, let me just think. I wasn't really disappointed in Zoolander 2, which is one that's come up in the comment section because I didn't really have expectations for it. I'd not seen Zoolander 1 until a couple of days before I saw Zoolander 2. Passengers was a big disappointment for me as well because, without going into too many spoilers, Passengers is a film that's so tone deaf as to what type of movie it actually is. It thinks it's an endearing dramatic romance, but actually it's more akin to a horror film. Big surprise, Hunt for the Wilder People, the Taika Waititi film. That kind of came out of nowhere. I saw it knowing practically nothing about it, and it really, really impressed me. Don't Breathe, I was quite surprised by. I was disappointed by Popstar Never Stop Never Stopping, but I think one reason that they weren't as harsh on the music industry as they should have been, I've ragged upon the music industry so much in this podcast, is because the people who make that film are actually connected and work in that industry, so they can't really take as many shots as they really, really should. But one big surprise for me was 10 Cloverfield Lane. I was expecting that film to be absolute pants. I was expecting it to be terrible because I hated the first Cloverfield. Really liked it. I think if you were to count 10 Cloverfield Lane as an actual sequel, it is one of the best sequels ever made in terms of just the sheer jump in quality, the sheer improvement that it's got. I'm glad that I saw Concussion, but I was a bit disappointed about that. I think Will Smith was very good, but the film really was pulling its punches too much. Bit disappointed in Kung Fu Panda 3, but that was mainly because it couldn't be as good as Kung Fu Panda 1 and 2 because those films were so good. Eddie the Eagle was quite a surprise. I thought that was really good. Green Room. Green Room really disappointed me, but that was because everybody was so hyping it up. Everyone was just saying how amazing it was. And then I watched it and I was just really underwhelmed. I didn't really think it was that good. The gore wasn't nearly as effective as everyone was saying it was. So those are just some of my biggest disappointments and some of my biggest surprises. And it could be a 98 because you keep asking. I did watch the Charlie Brooker 2016 whiteboard. My friends worked on it, so full disclosure. But yeah, Charlie Brooker is amazing. He's one of the sharpest, wittiest guys working today in terms of writing. I love Black Mirror, and he is the guy who I'd like to write some episode of Doctor Who. I think he'd do amazing. Tom Briley Smith also has asked a couple of times, who would you recast as the Joker in the DCEU? It's going to sound like a cliche choice, but anyone other than Jared Leto. Because I'm amazed that he is just not been recast already, because he's so terrible in that film. I'm amazed that there hasn't been an announcement for that yet. I know some people are copying and pasting questions. I'll get to those ones later. But let's get to the next patron question. Dean Jones says, with Sherlock Series 4 premiering today, what are your expectations for the series? I've been marathoning the previous stories in order to rank them. At time of writing, I still need to revisit Series 3 and The Abominable Bride, so my ranking so far goes. So this is from best to worst. The Reichenbach Fall, Scandal in Belgravia, The Hounds of the Baskerville, A Study in Pink, The Great Game, and The Blind Banker. My list is kind of the same as yours, except I would swap A Study in Pink and The Great Game. And I love A Study in Pink, but it just shows how great the quality of the first 2 seasons were. I need to revisit Series 3 as well, but all I know is that basically all of Series 3 would be near at the bottom of the list. I think the wedding episode is the best one of the 3, but it probably still doesn't go anywhere near the quality of Series 1 or Series 2, with the exception of The Blind Banker. So my expectation for the series is just solve crimes, be a bit simpler, don't be so up your own arse. I wish I can give a more in-depth answer to this, but yeah, it just feels like they're kind of losing the plot. They're trying so hard to be James Bond and so hard to be shocking, and taking so many twists and turns that it doesn't really feel like anything substantive is happening. And I just feel like if the plots were simpler, we could focus more on the characters. If the plots were more interesting, then the characters' stuff wouldn't matter as much. But it's in this weird middle ground where neither of them is working that well. And Casey Review says the Great Game is that low. But Great Game is amazing, but it just shows how great Series 2 is. I think every episode of Series 2 is better than anything Series 1 did. And bear in mind that Series 1 has 2 phenomenal episodes and a good one with the Blind Banker. Danny DeSanta says, I have to sleep. Good night, everybody. Good night, Danny DeSanta. Sleep well. It is 10:30. So at least in the UK, nearly 10:30. So good night. Okay, and Winter, the final patron question. Unless there's... Actually, I'll just go to the comment section. Was there any more Sherlock talk? Just talk about who would cast as the Joker. Michael Keaton as the Joker. That would be meta. Billy D. Williams is going to be voicing Two-Face in the Lego Batman movie. How amazing is that? I love that. That's so awesome. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Pudsey the Dog the movie are definitely your favourite films, confirmed. That comes from School with Joe. You figured me out, Joe. You figured me out. Okay, so let's go to the final Patreon question. Let's take a swig of tea. When I talk for a long amount of time, my nose feels like it's getting really, really bunged up. So I apologise if I end up sniffing. I apologise for that terrible audio. But Winter asks, the return of Dr. Mysterio, the Doctor Who Christmas special, left me bored after 15 minutes. It just felt like a contrived scenario so that Steve Moe could try and bring back some people who have gone over to the MCU fan base using a bunch of Easter eggs. But while this excursion into the superhero genre hasn't worked well, that doesn't mean it won't work in the future. My question is, what different genres do you think would work in a Doctor Who episode? I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Doctor Who is so unique in its premise and so perfectly constructed to work with anything. Like you've got a premise where you have basically an immortal main character who can go anywhere, anywhen, and they can pick up people as they come and go, and it means you can tell any story you want in any genre you want. Drama, romance, horror, superhero, you can do it. Yeah, any genre can work with Doctor Who. I think that, but when you're doing something like Return of Dr. Mysterio, where it is basically just copying the tropes, copying the trait, like the Doctor is far removed from a lot of the superhero action that's happening in that episode. Like the whole dinner sequence. I think the best line of that scene is when when that woman is just like looking down with her head in her hands, and Grant has got his mask off. And he's like, I think if you just took a moment to look up, I think that was the funniest scene, the funniest line in that scene. But apart from that, the Doctor's not involved in any of that superhero stuff. He's really disconnected from it, which means that you don't get... it doesn't feel like Doctor Who tackling superheroes. It just feels like a generic superhero episode that the Doctor is just skirting around the edge of. Casey Review says, has Doctor Who done noir yet? That would be awesome. I think if you really took it visually and really used the heavy shadows and the really prominent reds as well, and the silhouettes and all the atmosphere, and I think it would really work. Like the Casey Reviews mentions that Melody Malone bit from The Angels Take Manhattan, like the opening, that just reeks of noir, but it's just the opening. I said, what, DGI Vid says, wasn't that Justin Chatwick as the super? I think it was. It looked like him. I actually can't remember. Justin Chatwick. Let's Google that. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's Tom Cruise's son from War of the Worlds. He's Goku in Dragon Ball. That's where I recognised him from. Oh my god, he's Goku. That's weird. He's got a cool superhero voice, but that's about it. Not really a lot of screen presence, but maybe that's kind of the point. So yeah, School with Joe says, but I love KFC. No idea where that came from. But yeah, there was Justin Chatwick as the superhero. There's a fly about. There we go. I don't think I got it. So yeah, the bloody stress toy from that Christmas special I found so annoying and dumb. Am I the only one? You are not the only one. That was a very stupid. I don't even know what the point. I think they're just wanting to sell it. I think they're just wanting to get the toy, the stress toy, and then just sell it and make it as just put it on shelves and make money from it. TARDIS Girl 11 says, what did you think of the kid? The kid was okay. I wish he was in it for more. I wish I'm not expecting like a really, really intense Man of Steel X-ray vision scene in a cupboard or anything, but I thought, yeah, kid did fine. But in terms of like the material that he worked with, we've seen better elsewhere, I think. And to be fair, he didn't really have as much to work with. And I think it was really, really contrived how he swallowed it. Maybe if he put the gem in that device that he was meant to, and then there's a big electric shock or something, and then he imbues the powers, that might have made more sense. But in terms of genres, Doctor Who can work with anything. It's designed to do that. I just think that the current creative team aren't interested in doing that, and that really disappoints me. It makes it feel like what I think the show can be and what the creators want it to be are on completely two different planes of existence right now, which is probably one reason I'm just so indifferent to the series. So just a couple more questions from the chat, because that was the last Patreon question. If you're also watching live, shameless product placement time. If you go on my Patreon, www.patreon.com/Trilbee, you can become a patron and get your questions and get some downloads of the podcast every single month, and you can help support the podcast and help keep the lights on here and stuff like that. So I massively appreciate that. But anyway, let's move on to more questions. So, have you seen La La Land and Arrival yet? Asks Jerome, and the thing's gone. Jerome Giolando. I've not seen La La Land because it doesn't come out in the UK for another week and a half. I didn't see Arrival. I'm hoping to catch up on that very soon. Can Doctor Who work with Bollywood? Yes, absolutely. School with Joe has asked that, just to clarify. It can work with anything. I would love to see a Bollywood episode. That would be amazing. But with the effects with the effects with Brexit and the UK economy and the media industry, it looks like, at least until we get our shit together, we're not going to be doing many episodes of anything on the BBC abroad for quite a while, because the pound is just so weak against everything else. That's what's going to happen with, like, completely changing the subject. I might even do an editorial on this, because I've seen the effects of it firsthand. Not Doctor Who porno. No. You know who you are in the chat. But what's going to be happening is that, it's already happening, is that America is going to be taking a lot of its shows to the UK because the pound is so weak, but because they're going to be taking their workforce with them. That employment is not going to be seen from the UK side for the most part. They may get a couple of people here and there, but it's going to end up cheaper for America to come to the UK, get their tax breaks, and also be able to expand and grow their budgets because the pound is so weak. So that we're going to be seeing a lot more of that in the recent future. So let's go. We need a porno set in the Star Wars universe. I'm certain that already exists. William Mumford. Kubler98 asks, what's it like to be on the new Movie Mania podcast with all the different time zones? Difficult, because I'm normally up the latest, normally up between like 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Trey is very comfortable in the afternoon in America, and Bandit sometimes doesn't even wake up in the morning in Australia. So that kind of makes it difficult. Let's get. Do you think Tim Miller is a good choice to direct the Sonic the Hedgehog movie? It's tough to say, because he's only directed Deadpool, and Sonic is quite a different character from Deadpool. Like, both have a sort of out of the 90s hipster, I'm too cool for this world attitude. But it's in very different. They take very different approaches to it. So who knows how it works? I don't really know much about Tim Miller as a director or anything. So apart from his work on Deadpool and his work for companies making video game cutscenes, so he's from that industry. So maybe it will work. Who knows? I'm seeing so many people talking about different Doctor Who genres. So what we got? Doctor Who edited by the Trailer House that edited Suicide Squad. I'm sure it would be done. Probably wouldn't be good. Doctor Who and Peter Pan crossover, suggests Joseph Hudson. I feel like a lot of Doctor Who series 5 and 6 is taking Peter Pan inspiration, so we're kind of already there. A little bit of Peter Capaldi's Todger. Oh boy, what are we on? Doctor Who episode is a meme video. There's probably a subversive webisode, a mini-sode to be done with that, I think so. Oscar Tidd has a legit question. Have you seen any of Westworld? No, I haven't. I'm hoping to maybe marathon it. I don't have HBO on my TV package, so who knows. How come you don't like the Bourne franchise? Because they're, with the exception of the first one, they're really poorly edited, really put together, and kind of boring and generic. And Matt Damon is not a convincing action star. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, folks, but he really is not a convincing action star. He's a character actor. He's not an action star. I just do not believe him as Bourne, as this incomprehensible badass who can knock people out in a single punch. I just don't believe it. D. Jill Vids, how about a Lego Doctor Who movie? I hope I pronounced it right this time, D. Jill Vids. Yeah, do it. That might. Maybe you probably couldn't convince the BBC to make a 45-50 minute episode of that, but I think that can be done. Kubla98 asks, have you seen Norm of the North? No, it is going to be one of the ones I'm catching up on, because I need some content for my worst of list. Nicholas Payne asks, do you prefer James Bond or Jason Bourne? No contest, James Bond. He's just a much more interesting character. Cybox, what time period would you like to see Doctor Who take on in an episode? Couple of years in the future, Black Mirror style. Let's go for a future that could happen. Something very depressing. Oscar Tidd asks, are you going to check out Silence? Heard it's epic. I've heard it's good. I've heard that it does not justify the 3 hour runtime. But I'm looking forward to anything Martin Scorsese does, so let's see how that goes. Funny story, I was at a big shopping centre the other day where they've got a cinema, and I was walking past this dad and his kid who were wondering what to go see. And the kid seemed to have latched on to a poster of Silence with Liam Neeson on it. I was like, I want to see the Liam Neeson movie. Who knows, maybe this kid had seen him train Batman, or had seen him as part of the A-Team and really liked Liam Neeson and thought that Silence was going to be more of that. So what happened is that the dad was like, okay, no, I know you love Liam Neeson, but you can't watch Silence, you're too young and it's like 3 hours long, so that's not going to happen. But how about, do you want to watch Liam Neeson as a tree? And there was a poster for A Monster Calls. And the kid was like, yeah, let's see Liam Neeson as a tree. So that kid is more excited for A Monster Calls than Silence. That's basically the moral of the story here. Okay, Dean Jones says, Trilbee, we need to go to a convention so we can get a picture together as Shaun and Ed from Shaun of the Dead. Who agrees with me? For those of you who don't know, a couple of weeks ago, Dean Jones asked a question on the Film Brits podcast. He's a patron, and he's awesome, and he's been knighted by me. He asked about conventions and my experience with them and cosplaying and stuff like that, and he has a very good cosplay as Shaun from Shaun of the Dead because he's got the matching hair, he's got the facial hair for it, and the shirt, and it all works out. And a few years ago for Halloween, I dressed up as Ed from Shaun of the Dead. So me and him at some point need to meet up, and we need to take a photo or possibly recreate the entirety of Shaun of the Dead of just us two. And I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, so we need to do that at some point. But I'm up for it, Dean, if we're somehow in the same city at the same time in those costumes. Raf K says, thoughts on the rate of cabbage agriculture in the UK? You've asked that multiple times, so I don't really... I was hoping by the time you copied and pasted it maybe 30 times, I would have an adequate answer for it. Cabbage agriculture in the UK... could be better. So Dino Reviews asks, what would you say about getting into the acting industry? Also, that Christmas episode had a boner joke. Good lord, goodness me. Oh my giddy aunt. Getting into the acting industry, it's all about the connections and the show reels. I can't really say firsthand, but The best way to do it is to maybe join an amateur dramatic society and get as much experience in front of audiences and working with people as possible. Work on as many student films as possible, work on as many independent, no-budget projects as possible to get material for a showreel, and then once you have a substantial and varied showreel, you submit for an agency. That's, from what I can tell, that's maybe the best way to do it. And School with... No, I'm not even going to answer that question, School with Joe. You know what you've asked concerning Elsa from Frozen. That's not happening. Jerome Giolando asks, have you seen the Adam West animated Batman movie? I haven't. Return of the Caped Crusader. I need to watch that. I've heard that it's the best DC related thing that's been released this year. So that would be awesome. If you... how did you save up for Christmas Detectives? The query asks, how did you save up for Christmas Detectives? I'm trying to make a short myself advice. Christmas Detectives was done on a budget of roughly £30. And I didn't even count, because it was done as part of a Manchester Philharmonic, which means you, basically a bunch of people get into a very, very cold room, and you make a film in 2 days, and then you screen it. And we already had the resources for the most part. We had the camera, we had the sound equipment, although for the most part we didn't even need to use the sound equipment because it's the footage of my dad, the retired police detective, narrating, so we didn't have to do anything about that. So basically, I had the idea, I had the interview footage, and I had the audio, and we just went out and did it in like a day and a half. And we had no budget, and we just... that's I'm sorry to give a disappointing answer, but there was, for Christmas Detectives, there was no budget. Probably the most expensive thing was just petrol to transport people. Live Breathe Media has asked this question a couple of times. Copy and paste is really, really working its magic. What's a good example of a film that's very director oriented, like say any Edgar Wright film, but also good at reflecting modern day topics and events, like say Iron Man 3's Mandarin plot? It may sound like a lame answer, but Iron Man 3 is actually a really good answer for that, because it does take modern day topics and themes and events, but it is quintessentially a Shane Black movie. It's got the witty rapport that's actually written and not improvised like the previous Iron Man films. It does have the Mandarin political commentary about terrorism and the media and how it's portrayed and how easily it could be to manipulate people with the right set of circumstances and with the right climate of fear. It also takes place at Christmas, so I think Iron Man 3 is a really good version of that. Edgar Wright as well, you could even argue that The World's End, many people have considered to be an allegory for Britain wanting to leave or remain a member of the European Union, and just what side Gary King is in that debate is up for debate. But Edgar Wright films are quintessentially Edgar Wright films, but they are still able to tackle modern subjects. So I think those two answers you gave are actually, you've unintentionally answered your own question, I think, with those examples. I think those are really good examples. School with Joe says, what do you think of that amazing film Monster Truck? I've not seen it. I think if it's just what it wants to be, I think if it is true to itself, it could be fun. What the heck? Communist in Space says, what's your favourite wax cylinder? What? I don't even know what that is. What's a wax cylinder? I'm worried that I'm going to Google it and I'm going to need to have the safe search on. Phonograph cylinder? I have no idea. I have no clue. I don't know anything about this topic. This is just dead radio. British Buffoon says, would you like to see the Lego Brexit movie? What is this? What would make a better movie? Trump, The Life and Times, or Brexit Just Why? Oscar Tidders asked that. I would love to see a... who directed it? I feel really bad. He did The Big Short. Adam McKay. I would love to see Adam McKay do a Brexit movie, because very much like The Big Short, which is all about poking fun but also being darkly truthful about the fact that the people in charge and the people who we most rely on to make important decisions have absolutely no clue what they're doing and are just in on it for themselves. I think that, and just watching Brexit unfold, you couldn't make this stuff up. It was so openly contradictory and so the lies were being exposed within hours of the result, and people are still just doubling down and going for it. And I think that's really, really... And obviously we need some distance from the event. We need to see how this all pans out. Personally, I don't think we're going to go through with it. And I think people are going to be very, very annoyed about that. But I just don't think that the people in charge are willing to commit the political suicide that a Brexit would entail, and the economic downturn and everything. But I think we need some distance from it. I'd love to see Adam McKay do a Brexit film. But yeah, I've heard about this UKIP film. I saw a joke article saying that Idris Elba had been cast as Nigel Farage, and that Donald Trump was going to play himself, and that Donald Trump had tweeted, "I can't wait to work with the guy who was from Shawshank Redemption." It was a really funny joke article. But let me just Google this UKIP movie. Brexit the movie seems imminent as Warner Brothers set to option UKIP donors' memoirs. It depends on what side... I don't know. I guess it feels like maybe one of those things that is going to... Movie studios are constantly buying rights to books and buying life rights and biopic rights and things like that, but they never actually do it. For example, there was that news a couple of months ago that somebody, I can't remember what the studio was, but they were going to be doing a Zoe Quinn biopic, and that Scarlett Johansson was going to be playing Zoe Quinn or something. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't really think the audience is there for it. However, they're always going to be buying up the book rights because they want to be the one who owns that material so that their competitors don't get it. So I think that's they're going to be Aaron Banks' memoir. So Warner Brothers seem to have bought the rights to make an Aaron Banks memoir film, but they might not actually do it. I don't know. I need to read more on this story. But I think doing a film on Brexit. Doing a film on UKIP now would be like kind of like a much more boring version of that sniper film from Inglourious Bastards. I don't know. I think that's kind of what we'd be doing. Communist in Space asks, where do you see a channel in 500 years? Probably is still floating as a bunch of ones and zeros while I lay dead. And let's go for a couple more questions, because I've been talking for an hour and 12 minutes apparently. Brexit the movie, where the directors run away and Michael Bay is left to make it, even though he has no passion for it. It's kind of how it goes. Sounds about right. What's your favourite animated sequel? Asks British Buffoon. I love Kung Fu Panda 2. How to Train Your Dragon 2, Shrek 2. DreamWorks do really good second installments. They really do. I think Shrek the Third is a massive pile of wank though. Really, 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 really bad piece of cinema. Toy Story sequels are really, really good as well. Finding Dory was good. I don't think Finding Dory was great because it just couldn't hope to capture Finding Nemo's awesomeness. So yeah, those are a couple off the top of my head. TARDIS Girl 11 says, have you seen Black Mirror? If you have, what do you think of it? Sorry for the copying and pasting. I have seen Series 1 and 2, Christmas Special, and I've seen a couple of episodes of Series 3. I've been meaning to watch a lot more of it. Black Mirror is amazing, and I love it for the most part. I think that the series, is it the finale for Series 2? The one where it's the weird blue puppet thing that takes politics. That's not... At the time, it was probably the worst thing ever, but then you watch it now and it's like, oh, this is kind of predicting the future. Kind of like the Prime Minister doing the thing with the pig. It's oddly prophetic. Remember, these questions are coming quite fast. Finding Nemo sucks. No, it doesn't, Joseph Hudson. Derek Foreman asks, what do you think of virtual reality movies? I don't think you'll be having full feature length movies with them, but I think in terms of short form entertainment or short form experiences, VR is going to be I think that would be really, really mainstream in a couple of years' time. Like there was Aardman have put together a short film through VR. What's it called? It's called I think it's called The Wait. What's it called? 1 second. This is going to be the most boring part of the podcast. It's called We Wait, and basically it's a VR experience where you play a Syrian refugee on a boat. And you see through their eyes. I think that's that's from Aardman Animations, the company that bring you Wallace and Gromit. I think that these short form experiences are going to be really, really interesting and really prominent in the near future. But in terms of full 2-hour experiences where you've got a whole 360 degree of vision and you're looking around everywhere and there's the Death Star, there's Rey and Finn and everything like that. I don't think you're going to be getting that in at least for maybe 1% of all screenings of any film ever. I'm not sure. I don't think that's going to happen. But in terms of like the short stuff, like We Wait from Aardman or or a couple of video games, I don't think it's really going to take off the way that they want it to. DJ Vid says, ever watched the new Ninja Turtle show? It's rather good. I watched a lot of the first series and I really enjoyed it. I've not watched any more of it, but I thought it was a really solid series. Really enjoyed it. Couple more questions. What was that? Favorite terrible movie? I'm not sure. The Room is a really good one, but don't know. Should there be a Doctor Who movie? Go for it. I just think that it might have to exist as its own thing, as its own standalone thing, as opposed to being in continuity with the series. Excited for Shrek 5? Asks Ethan Soff. No, I'm not. Right, my voice is going to be dying in a moment, so thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Film Brits podcast. Stranger Things. Yes, I've watched Stranger Things. I think it's really, really good. I think the ending was a little bit anticlimactic, but the rest of it was really, really good, and I talk about it in depth with Bandit in the Movie Mania podcast, so be sure to listen to that one as well. Thank you so much for listening and watching this podcast where for some reason there's a picture on the bottom left and I'm on the bottom right. No idea how or why that has happened. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you are interested in getting a download version of the podcast, or if you want to help keep the lights on here, you can go on my Patreon and help support it through there. And also you can subscribe on iTunes, you can subscribe to this channel, and thank you so much for watching this. Thank you for asking questions. I wish you all very much all a very happy 2017, and before you ask, hopefully let's get some more Doctor Who reviews done this year. I've had that script and the video for the Rings of Akaten review done for a while. It's just about finishing it and finding the time to sit down and properly doing it. And I'm really looking forward to the Rings of Akaten review because I have a lot to say, and I think it's one of my favourite reviews that I've ever written. So, yes, the query. My name is Will. So thank you so much for listening to this, and I shall see you folks next time. Now let's see if I can actually successfully turn off this live stream without cocking up.